I made a video similar to this about the infantilization of feminine characters, specifically talking about Kave 2 weeks ago, and I said I would make a Furina one, so here it is. Furina is a very, and I mean very popular character, potentially top 10, maybe even top 5 most popular Genshin character of all time. That's how beloved she is, but for all the love she receives, that doesn't necessarily mean she doesn't get hit with a ray of misinformation and having her character destroyed to fit into some box. So, today I will be talking about the infantilization of Furina as a character. Remember to subscribe, like the video, and let's get into it. Why is Furina infantilized? In my opinion, I feel like she's infantilized for a few reasons. Her personality and looks. She can sometimes come off as bratty, but also acts cute. She has a bubbly personality and looks cute. Not to mention, she is short. All these attributes are seen, usually by people who can't handle a grown female character that isn't tall or masculine, as feminine and inherently childish. So they tend to treat the characters that attribute these traits like children. It is disturbing and honestly annoying to see. A female character can be short and cute without being reduced to a child. I don't understand how that is such a hard concept to grasp. There are multiple women in real life that are short and cute, that are grown women. A woman doesn't just stop being a woman because they're short and cute. So let's get into the instances where she's infantilized by the fandom. We're starting off with the she's Nouvelette's daughter narrative. This part of the video is what inspired most of this video to begin with. I was on Pinterest and I stumbled upon some Nouvelette and Furina ship art and decided to look at the comments, and it was a mixture of people commenting the usual ship comments like, oh my god, they're so canon, and they're married, your honor. You know, those sort of stuff. But what really irked me were the people going, isn't it just me that finds this weird? Or they're literally father and daughter. Or, I see them as father and daughter, so this is gross. Something along those lines. Like, no offense, but that sounds like a you problem. If you see Nouvelette and Furina as father and daughter, well, I don't care for it, and I tend to think the actual implementation of this dynamic is usually badly done, I'm not going to attack anyone who does see them that way because people are entitled to their own interpretations. But I can't make a whole video about it. My main issue with this interpretation of their dynamic is that it is usually used against those that ship them. I personally see Zhongli and Xiao as father and son, even though they're more like boss and his favorite employee. That's just how I choose to interpret their dynamic. But if someone was to draw them in a romantic way or in a romantic setting, do you know what I'm not going to do? I won't go to their comment section and tell them how they're wrong for shipping them and they're technically shipping a parent and a child, because that just isn't true. They're not biologically related. No one was adopted, and it isn't referenced in game that they see each other in such a way, so I have no basis for my argument. Other than using it against people who ship them together, they also sometimes just reduce her to his child, as in they reduce her into a literal child. Instead of making her his grown daughter that is capable of doing things for herself, they make her his underage, incapable of doing anything for herself daughter, because the woman who sacrificed 500 years of her life to save her people is the definition of incapable. The woman who suffered in silence all those years to figure out a way to save her people and ultimately deciding to off a certain part of herself is incapable. All because she has a bubbly personality and is short. Just in case you didn't know, only children are allowed to be happy and short. God forbid a grown woman be any of those things. It is infuriating. When you're going to see them as father and daughter, at least have the decency to not turn her into an incapable child. Another iteration of this line of thinking is the one that claims that Focelo is the mother, Nouvelette is the father, and Furina is the daughter, which is just canonically incorrect in so many ways. I don't know how many times this needs to be repeated, but Focelo and Furina are the same person. And no, you can't headcanon them as separate entities because they literally aren't. Your headcanon would be going against everything canon. You are just shipping Nouvelette with someone you see as his daughter. If you see them as father and daughter, but you don't do any of the things mentioned above, you're good. I still don't like it, but at least you're not butchering her character and harassing the shippers. Different people will see different interactions in different lights, and that's what makes fandom so much fun. Do what you will, just don't go harassing people on their own page for it. Next, the Nuvi Furi shippers, which is the ship name just in case you didn't know. While the shippers do sometimes get harassed by the father-daughter people, this by no means mean they are completely free of criticisms. Some of the art and fanfiction I have seen do tend to infantilize her. They may not treat her like his daughter, but they don't treat her like his equal either. Even when shipped with Nouvelette, she is sometimes reduced to an incapable child for the same reasons as why she's reduced to his daughter, because she has a bratty but also bubbly personality and relies on Nouvelette for certain things. Her getting reduced to some incapable child when shipped with him is just so aggravating to see, because there are better, more healthier ways to see their relationship. I personally enjoy the ship as well, but I rarely interact with its fandom just because of how some people treat Furina in the ship, and Nubilet is rarely properly represented either. There's nothing inherently wrong with the ship. As I said, I like the ship. But due to how she is treated, some people might be put off shipping them because they don't want to perpetuate the idea that Furina is some incapable child just because of how she looks and sometimes acts. The Genshin Impact fandom, or just fandoms in general, do tend to have a habit of reducing female characters that are not outwardly masculine into either flat love interests, they call them boring, or they infantilize them to no end. And Furina, despite her popularity, is no exception. Furina and Nubilet's relationship in the game is sort of a strained one. You can tell they care for one another, but there's just so much more to be said and done, and I hope miHoYo continues to develop them even after the Fontaine arc. Last but not least, the obsessive fans. Furina's popularity means there are going to be people who are a tad bit too attached to her character, to the point where if anyone, real or not, was to say something to criticize her, or just not necessarily like her, they will be harassed and labeled a misogynist, or just be considered wrong for what they're doing, because obviously, criticizing a female character is always misogynistic. Do I think there are people who hate Furina for misogynistic reasons? Yeah, absolutely. Do I think everyone who has criticisms for Furina is a misogynist? No. Of course not. Her character isn't perfect and people are allowed to criticize certain aspects of her character if they don't agree with it. For example, one of my criticisms for her is that she had 500 years to prepare for the flood and she did basically nothing in the eyes of her people. If she had made some preparations, maybe move the people of Passant from open waters, the people of Passant wouldn't have been affected, so they have every right to have not forgiven her. Yes, she saved all of Fontaine, but to the people who have lost their families, that wouldn't matter. The people they care about are still dead. Just because all of Fontaine has been saved doesn't mean the people they care about are somehow not dead anymore. They're still dead, and she could have prevented that. Let's not pretend she couldn't have. There's absolutely so many things she could have done to prepare Fontaine for the inevitable flood, but she didn't do anything. At least nothing was mentioned in game to show that, oh, here's how Furina has improved the architecture of Fontaine to make it less susceptible to floods of the sort. At least not to my recollection. Recollection? Is that how you say that word? Not to my recollection? Even Lyney and Lynette helped with preparation more than she did, but her fans don't want to hear it. And I love Furina, but you have to understand, she's not perfect. There's so much more she could have done, and I understand why she didn't do it. She was panicking and a bunch of other stuff. But still, criticism is criticism. Criticism isn't hate. Am I saying she did nothing to help her people? Of course not. But she could have been more proactive about it. Criticizing your favorite character doesn't mean you don't like them anymore. It just means you can acknowledge their flaws and you love them regardless. Pretending she is perfect and has done no wrong doesn't help her character and is also a form of infantilization, just in case you didn't know. Treating a character as if they're incapable of taking criticism is how you would treat a child. She's a grown woman. She can take the criticism. Like I said in the Kave video, if you truly loved a character, you wouldn't have to remove important parts of their character to fit into your box of what you want them to be like. An extra bonus are the people who hate her and try to minimize her efforts in saving Fontaine, who, from my experience, are usually the toxic, misogynistic side of the Wriothesley and Neuvillette shippers, either because they think she gets in the way of their ship, which is the curse of being a female character around a gay ship, or they just don't like her and want to sully her character with misinformation, which is annoying. What are your thoughts on Furina as a character? Do you like her? Do you not like her? Do you ship her with anyone? Tell me your thoughts down below. Also, just to keep myself more accountable, my next video should be about Scaramouche in the recent 4.8 event. Look forward to that. That is all I have for today. Subscribe and see you whenever.